why is the Navamsha so important related to marriage? The Navamsha itself is a chart that deals with our capacity to find purpose and to be committed to a path in life. And so the reason the Navamsha is so important for marriage is because it gives insights into how does a person manage their commitments? How does a person roll with the difficulties of having a sense of purpose and staying focused on their purpose? The Navamsha is what gives us this insight. And each planet within the Navamsha is extremely important to figure that out. The course that I've discussed in a previous talk on the Vargas, on unlocking the Vargas and the Navamsha and Dasamsha course, again, it's at AshevilleVedicAstrology.com under the downloadable courses section, goes into this. But when you're looking at a person's chart, think about it. If you know someone who never can commit to anything, is always jumping from one thing to the other, when a difficulty arises, they bail. It doesn't seem like they're able to stay focused or fixated on anything long enough to derive a sense of meaning out of it. If you know people like that, more than likely, they also will have a lot of lack within their relationships, long-term committed relationships, because they don't know how to commit to something and how to stay true to the course. And each planet within the Varga gives us insights into how a person functions in this regard. I was recently spending some time with a friend, and I hadn't seen her in a long time, and she was talking about taking a vacation with one of her friends who doesn't have a job and hasn't had a job for many years. She has a very good, I guess, kind man who takes care of her, but she hasn't worked. She mainly just spends a lot of time on social media and taking pictures of herself. But so this woman, who's a friend of mine, who's a very hard worker, probably works over 60 hours a week, is pretty much married to her job. She works for a tech company out in California. She was saying how they were going on this vacation, and she wanted her friend just to do one little thing since she had time, just to make an itinerary. And that was a mistake, because when they finally made it there, this woman had not done her job. And for some reason, it popped into my mind. I said, well, that's funny. It's like, you shouldn't give someone a job who doesn't have a job. You shouldn't give someone a job who doesn't have a job. That seems kind of silly, doesn't it? But if you think about it, if a person doesn't have a job, it means they don't know how to do a job, probably. Now, of course, there are those times where you get laid off, or certain things come into your life that you can't help. But if you're an able-bodied, healthy, intelligent person, and you don't have the capacity to work and do a job, you're not going to be able to do hardly much of anything else useful or worthwhile most of the time. It's an extreme exaggeration. But think about it. Think about your friends that work all the time, work very hard. If you give them something to do, they're done with it just like that, because they know things need to get done. They've got a schedule. They have to take care of things. So the same thing can be said and can be true when we think about the Navamsha, is it shows us how we take care of things and how we meet our responsibilities. So that's going to be applicable to any area of life. Oftentimes people try to look at the Navamsha as a Varga divisional chart that speaks to what is your purpose in life, or what of the four main goals. We have the dharmic purpose. We have the purpose towards moksha, or liberation. We have the purpose towards wealth and resources. We have the purpose towards enjoyment. The four main purposes that are often associated with Vedic astrology and Hindu thought. We'll look at the Navamsha. And the Navamsha helps to a degree, but remember, each divisional chart is just a refinement of the Rashi. It's those planetary yogas where you consider the combinations of 10th house lords with 9th house lords, or 9th house lords with 12th house lords, or 2nd house lords with 9th house lords. These are all the yogas. And again, these are things that we cover at the very end of year 2 of the Astrological Apprenticeship Program. It's those yogas that tell us what is a person going to get involved in. If a person has more moksha yogas, there's more of a spiritual drive. If there's more artha yogas, there's more of an emphasis towards work and resources and being involved in the world in a very day-to-day work setting. If you have a dharma yogas, there's often a focus towards supporting society, promoting education, promoting those important things that help society grow. So you get the idea. So it is, if you want to figure out what your like path and direction purpose is in life, you have to look at these particular kinds of yogas. They're often called Raj yogas, but that's just a general term because not all of them are royal yogas. Some of them are combinations of the 2nd and 11th house lord, which are wealth types of yogas. Those are what show us what kind of purpose, what kind of things are going to be most supported in your life that you are going to be involved with. It's not the Navamsha. Although you can take those planets from those yogas and see how are they situated in the Navamsha, because if you have some wonderful yogas within the birth chart that speak to a sense of purpose and a sense of wealth, that's wonderful. But you know, and I know, you've been to many astrologers who have made predictions about these wonderful wealth yogas that never work out. Or you've seen people's charts who don't have any of these yogas and somehow they're wealthy. So you and I both know on some inner level that there is more to it than that. And that's because not only do you have to qualify those yogas by Shadbala, by using a particular form of yoga judgment formula, which again we cover in that last class in year 2 of the Astrological Apprenticeship course. Not only do you have to do that, but it's very imperative that you take them into the Navamsha and the Dasamsha to see how active are they going to be, generally, the Dasamsha, and with how much purpose and direction are they going to have. So this is a little beyond where I wanted to go with this talk, but you get the idea. So when you're looking at the Navamsha for relationships, some general rules to follow. Number 1, the state of the sun in the Navamsha will give you a sense of with how much duty will a person have in their relationships and marriage. How much sense of duty will they bring to it? Remember, the sun rises every day. The sun is consistent. The sun shows up all the time. With how much consistency will someone show up within the relationship? When we think about the moon, how much capacity does an individual have to be adaptable within relationships, to be emotionally open and receiving, yet also adaptable to the changes that occur within a person's relationship, within a long-term committed relationship? And if you're with someone for more than a year or two, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, as long as you're alive and growing, there will be a lot of adaptation and compromise you have to experience. That's just part of it. Successful relationships do bring about compromise. You can't have it all. If you do, you're extremely lucky. But if you want to continue to sustain the idea that you can have it all, you're setting yourself up for a lot of broken expectations and failure, and also, therefore, difficulty within relationships. Mercury. How well can an individual communicate their needs within a relationship? How well can a person understand what you need in a relationship? How well do they manage their life such that they can have a balanced relationship? This is all Mercury. Venus. How much capacity does an individual bring to enjoy the comforts of being in a relationship? And this might sound silly, but there are many people who, when they're in a relationship that's comfortable and brings about a sense of ease, they get uncomfortable because whether it's due to their childhood or the theory of past lives, they sabotage things when things are good and comfortable. They just can't keep quiet. It's like, I tend to call them scab pickers, where life can be going just great, but you get a scab picker involved and they just need to find something wrong. They need to dig in to find someone's shadow side or dark side, because there's no way this can be so easy. Venus is also the capacity to make choices that lead to higher fulfillment. Does this person, are they a heterosexual male, and do they see a beautiful woman walking down the street? And is their Venus good such that they're able to say, yes, that is a beautiful woman, but I'm in love with and committed to my wife, so I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm not going to oogle this woman. I'm not going to just gaze at her in a way that makes my wife feel uncomfortable. There are plenty of men out there who don't have a good Venus that don't understand that's a bad idea, so they don't make the right decision. They look at the other woman, their wife gets jealous, they set up a whole world of problems. Venus shows, again, the capacity. Do you know how to nurture your partner? If you're a man, do you understand that a woman probably likes things like flowers, likes you to take her out to eat? And these are all stereotypes. So maybe not every woman feels this way, and I tend to agree with that. But there are certain things that most women like to feel cared for, appreciated, loved. Do you understand how to do that with your Venus? With a woman, do you know how to nurture your man such that he is able to feel it and appreciate it and not feel manipulated by it? When you get a difficult Venus in a woman's Navamsha, oftentimes she becomes manipulative in her capacity to nurture. She gives, but only so that she feels like she will get something in return. And that's not what Venus is about. Venus is giving in a very healthy way that leads to higher fulfillment without attachment. Mars, do you know how to pick fights that are worth fighting for? Do you know how to stand up for your spouse? Do you know that when your spouse comes home and is upset and angry because of something that happened to work, do you know not to take that personally? Do you know how to use your Venus to bring her or him a sense of comfort? Or is your Mars not so good, such that you take it personally and you just fight right back, and then it escalates into something that's blown completely out of proportion? Mars, are you able to, within your relationship, understand what is worth fighting for? Jupiter, are you able to understand that there are problems in the world and that in the bigger picture you work through them? Are you able to be forgiving appropriately? Are you able to be optimistic about your future? Do you know how to give your spouse or partner more space, because Jupiter deals with the ether element? Saturn, are you able to bear the difficulties and hardships? Because you live in a world where negative things happen. People get sick, people die, people lose their job, people lose money. All kinds, you know, you're a human, you live in this world. If you just look around, you can see what our experience can typically be. And one of the worst problems with Saturn in the Navamsha, if it's in a difficult placement, difficult situation, I see this happen over and over with people who come to me for relationship compatibility. They think there's really something wrong with their relationship, when really what's going on is they themselves don't know how to bear the difficulties of living in this world, and they don't understand how to share those burdens with their spouse in an appropriate way. Or maybe their spouse doesn't know how to bear those burdens. So you look at a person's Saturn in the Navamsha to get a sense of, are they able to bear the burdens of the commitment, of the responsibility to make it through those difficulties so you come out the other end? So many times I've seen people break up or lose their partner because they're going through a difficult time cycle of Saturn, which doesn't last, in comparison to the whole relationship, if it's a sub-cycle, doesn't last that long in comparison to the entirety of the relationship. But because things are only as strong as their weakest link, when they run that Saturn cycle related to relationship, and that Saturn's no good in the Navamsha, all of a sudden they see all these problems they didn't see before, and they can't bear them, they can't stand them. And so if they would just wait until they pass that time period, they would then hopefully be able to come back to relationships and appreciate it and then move on. But too many people don't wait. They become impatient. They've got a bad Mars too, so they don't know what to fight for, and they fight too hard for things that aren't very good. And then they end the relationship, which could have been very good for them if they just would have had patience and waited. So when we think about the planets in the Navamsha, this is one of the general ways to consider it. If you want more details about understanding this, again, please see those two courses at AshevilleVedicAstrology.com on the Navamsha and the Dasamsha, and also on unlocking the Vargas. And I'm also working on a book on the Vargas. Hopefully in, let's see, it's 2018 now. If my capacity to remain dedicated to that purpose, if my Saturn allows me to do the tedious work of editing to bring it to fruition, hopefully we'll have this book by 2020. It's a particular book on the Vargas and how to look at them. But you can go to the downloadable courses page at Asheville Vedic Astrology and find more insights into this. The Navamsha is very important, again, not just for relationships, but you can also translate this to other things that you find a sense of purpose in. Your career, your hobbies, your family. If you know how to read the chart, you know how to take these planets from the birth chart and kind of overlap them in the Navamsha, you'll get a deep sense of how a person finds purpose through those things. Oh, one thing I forgot, I'll put a link down at the bottom of this video in the information section. There are some really wonderful immediate reports that you can get on your relationship capacity that I find extremely helpful. Number one, to give you a sense, what is your relationship capacity, your capacity to have relationships. You can have that done for yourself and for a spouse and partner. It gives a lot of deep insights related to how you function in relationships and what to look for. So these are powered by Kala software. I've just found them to be very helpful for people, so I'll put a link down at the bottom of the video for that.